really want to take a screenshot. I'm such a dad. I love group pics. 1, 2, 3. Hello. So I know Zoom is evil, but Skype really dropped the ball back in March. So we don't have much of a choice. All corporations are evil. Digital direct action is a simple way to do something about it. Together. Oh. Because we all showed up today, we are now empowering something that is bigger than ourselves and adds to the ongoing conversation around the speculative futures that exist in the greater unknown of our daily lives. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that this is the future right now in practice. We are in the future right now just by being here. And as small as it might seem, no one really knows what the ripples of our actions tonight will be because everything counts. Now is the time to take action and remind ourselves about the power of relationships and that we are not alone. Ugh. Yes. And on top of that, we've been able to raise $677 from the RSVPs for this event to give to Toronto Prisoners' Rights Project Prisoner Emergency Support Fund. So we're already doing so much. And if you want to do more, there's an art auction happening as well, where you can support the Prisoner Emergency Support Fund and get a chocolate cake that says Defund the Police on it. Please welcome Rajan. Thank you for joining us.
Ooh, thank you. That was the most hype. I'm super energetic for this conversation.
Woo!
Clap, clap.
Yes, amazing. I'm representing all 100 plus people right now. We are all clapping for you. So maybe you could just start us off by telling us a little bit about Toronto's Prisoners' Rights Project.
So the Toronto Prisoners' Rights Project started, I want to say maybe a year and a half ago, a little over that. And we're a network of former prisoners, frontline workers, lawyers, students, people doing research around the prison industrial complex or prisons and jails, folks like myself who have loved ones that are on the inside. And we came together sort of initially to figure out how we can amplify the voices of people doing prison solidarity work or prisoner solidarity work and prison abolition work. And we've sort of morphed and moved into becoming a direct action organization. We recognized that there was a void of people serving incarcerated people. A lot of folks are attached to the government. They're arm's length bodies of the government, and they have very heavy limitations on the kind of work that they can do. And that means that they can employ certain kinds of tactics. And so we know that direct action works. That's why we're here today. And so we came together from people across the community trying to be able to coordinate that kind of uncompromising direct action, moving towards a future without prisons, without cages, and justice for all incarcerated people.
Wow, and you guys have only been around for not that long, right?
No, yeah, we're very, very, very new. So Jessica Evans, Lydia Dobson are some of the sort of foundational people in starting to bring people together in this organizing. And I got involved when we were doing work around the prison phone system. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that at some point, but um, back in January. And so I was sort of reflecting on my experience. And we were starting to get a little bit more organized and do a little bit more actions and become more active as a group. And I guess kind of just happenstance, we happened to be getting organized as we were coming into COVID, and we were one of the only direct action organizations in Toronto focusing specifically on these issues. And we were well placed along with CPEP, which is in Ottawa, the Criminalization and Punishment Education Project, to do a lot of the work. And so things in the last couple of weeks and in the last couple of months have just really blown up and become super active. So we went from like 9 people to like 56 people in our sort of core organizing unit.
Yeah, it's really amazing to see how like fast and just like thorough you guys have been able to organize and the amount of campaigns you have going on. It's like really impressive and just like kudos, like thank you for doing this work. Thanks for being here. So I guess my first question is like, what are the tethers of prison abolition and like the tethers from defunding the police to prison abolition? And if you could just speak a little bit about how those kind of connect to each other.
Hmm. I think prison abolition is about dismantling the conditions that allow prisons to exist in the first place, and police are amongst the most violent, um, well-resourced arms of the states that hold up the prison industrial complex. And so we continue to build more prisons because of the police work surveilling our communities, surveilling particularly Black and Brown communities, Indigenous communities, low-income communities, trans folks, sex workers, and so we see these things as deeply connected. And while the state, our governments, our elected officials will often try to talk about them as if they're completely separate things, like we have CSC, which is Correctional Services Canada, or Community Safety Canada. I don't know, CSC. They're the federal ministry body that looks after prisons. And they often are like they're like baffled. They're doing this study right now. They're like, we have no idea why there's so many Black and Brown people in our institutions. What can we do without sort of looking at the other piece of it, which is like the incredibly racist policing, the incredibly racist justice system that is landing people in these cages. And so, yeah, we see it as all kind of connected. And so our work to abolish prisons isn't just about abolishing prisons, it's about eliminating police, it's about resourcing our communities, it's about making sure that people have food, making sure that people are safe. All of these other things are sort of deeply connected to that process.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. How it's like, yeah, like we try to compartmentalize and see things as differently, but it's like these two, defunding and abolishing, are super interconnected. And I know that right now everyone's talking about it. I think this is at like again like the front of the conversation. It's on the top of everyone's head. And there was a doc going around that was asking for a 10% cut from Toronto's police. So I just wanted to ask you, like, is that enough? What are your thoughts on that? What should like what should we actually demand for? Is 10% enough?
We have an opportunity, I think, when the sort of quarantines started with COVID in March, we had a webinar pretty early on. It was called "Contain COVID, Not People," trying to sort of amplify the message. A lot of the work that you folks are doing here. Um, and Cyrus Marcus Ware, who's now in Toronto Prisoners' Rights Project, was really excited, and I think for all of us, it was a new moment to think about this, but was really excited about the opportunities that exist with COVID, where before our eyes, seeing some of the most long-standing capitalist structures just crumble and fall apart, and people are beginning to see, are or even more people are beginning to see um, that the society that we live in isn't organized in a way that allows everybody to be taken care of or everybody to be safe. Um, and so we have an opportunity here, like while a devastating opportunity with an incredible amount of people being lost in our communities, we have an opportunity to envision something different and to do something different. Our call for prison abolition went from something that was on the fringe to there's an article that went out in Cosmopolitan the other day.
Whoa.
So it is like this is a conversation that not just a few of us are having, all of us are having, and I think if we are going to be in that moment, we need to push past our first impulse to be to call for reform or to call for some small adjustments to the status quo. We know that prisons and police, in whatever iteration that they take place, like their main intention, their reason that they exist, the reason that they were created, were to um, police indigenous communities and to uh, cage Black people. And so it's not a coincidence that these are the communities that we see dramatically overrepresented inside of our prisons and jails. It is by design. And so what we're saying is that these are not the institutions that we need to take care of us. Um, yeah, if you had an appliance at home that was not working. It just like fundamentally, like you're trying to iron your clothes and it was just lighting holes or like burning holes into your clothes. You wouldn't just tinker with it. You would replace it, get something different. That's a
Yeah,
weird.
you wouldn't just tinker with it for 10%. So
Yeah.
like what you're saying, like is what you're saying we should ask for a 100% defund of the Toronto police.
Yeah, I mean, we should ask for a 100% defund and elimination of the Toronto police budget or police budgets everywhere,
Mm.
coupled with investments in our community. Because the issues that we're seeing with like police and quote unquote crimes is more often than not because of poverty, because of lack of housing, because of um, no access to mental health supports, because of a myriad of things. And we've had austerity governments or cuts to public funding from every single government institution or every single government under every single party for as long as I've been alive. I'm 28 years old. And so there's a lot of repair that needs to be done to our systems. And defunding the police offers a lot of resources and money to be able to put in other places, but it can't stop there either.
Because like I was watching Angela Davis talking on Democracy Now, and she was saying that like prison abolition is not just about saying no to prisons, it's also about saying yes to imagining. So I was wondering if you had any like personal imagining, like what would you personally imagine, and the other branches tied to prison abolition that is beyond just saying no.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that like having communities to take care of each other. In during COVID, we've seen an incredible amount of just community care, just people coming together in remarkable and inspiring ways. In addition to this work, food security is the thing that really holds my heart, and just seeing organizations like Food Share and just people just literally bringing food to people's doorsteps and or setting up teams to go and help out people in the community or bring people to their appointments or help to do different things like that is to me what a world um, that is the sort of the goal that we realize out of prison abolition. That's what it looks like. You know, communities taking care of one another, having these resources and infrastructure. We're having a forum, and this is kind of exactly the kind of stuff that we're going to talk about. But as I'm planning the forum and as I'm hearing from people, like I'm imagining like response teams that show up, so nobody's forced to call police on their loved ones to do a wellness check. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I have like family members that deal with mental health issues. Their parents have had to call the police to like help and support them or to have some sort of in engagement with them, and that's terrifying. Like that's to know that you can lose somebody in your family because of that sort of interaction. And that's devastating for the parents that are put in those positions. So we need people that are in our community that we trust, that are not showing up with guns, that are not showing up to incarcerate people, to come through and to offer tangible support and resources.
Yeah, I love that. It's like investing in community and like responsibility for our communities is so hand in hand with prison abolition and creating like the structures within our communities by us for us to protect us. I think is like so powerful. Rajan, I wish we could talk forever, but we have to get moving on to the action stuff. I was just wondering what's next for Toronto Prisoners' Rights Project and how can we all get involved some more.
Yeah, we have a ton of things happening. Um, I had a slideshow here that I was going to pull up, but um, like you mentioned earlier, we're continuing to run the Prisoner Emergency Support Fund, which supports folks that are re-entering our communities, folks that are being released from prisons with almost no support. A lot of the people that reach out to us say that they don't have like clothes or a place to go or money to take the bus back to their hometown because people are dragged to prisons like an hour and a half, 2 hours away from where they actually are from. And so we're continuing to fundraise. We're almost at our goal now, but as we're getting closer and closer to our goal, we're receiving more and more applications, and so we need more support. I believe we need about $84,000 to cover the applications that we have right now. We have an art auction which you talked about, so I won't harp on that too much, but it's an incredible art auction. There's so many cool things being posted there. Some folks that are here have art that's posted there, so I'm really excited about that. We've been doing these weekly webinars to, you know, um, to grow together as we're sort of envisioning what prison abolition looks like. This is a new concept for a lot of people. And so we've been trying to do the education work as much as we're agitating and sort of trying to do this direct action to take apart the state. So our next webinar is on Thursday, June 18th. It's on defunding police and prison. So it's talking a little, actually everything that we're going to be covering here in terms of action. It's going to be looking at sort of who's doing that organizing, how's that organizing happening, what are people sort of thinking, some of the conversations that we don't have all the time to jump through here. And then the thing that I'm super, super, super excited for, we're organizing a community forum to organize alternatives to policing in Toronto. So it's called We Keep Each Other Safe, a community forum to organize alternatives to policing in Toronto. And that's on Saturday, June 20th. We're taking statements from community members. So if you have an idea about what this needs to look like, what would an alternative to police in your neighborhood, in your community look like in order to keep you safe, in order for you to trust to be able to call it or reach out to folks so that they can help and respond to you. If you have any ideas or thoughts or questions or anything like that, you should sign up to speak. It'll also be live streamed so folks can just watch the conversation, contribute online. This for us is one step, one of the beginning steps of creating something that will keep each other safe. We're interested in all forms of direct action, not just calling on the people with power to do better, but we know that there's power in the people, there's power in our community, and we can take care of each other. And so that's what this project's about. And then we will continue to take action. COVID-19, things are starting to shift and the world is starting to open back up. But that doesn't mean that our conversations about what's happening inside prisons will stop until, so we're going to continue our organizing and beyond this moment.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love, like, you guys are doing so much. And I think We Keep Each Other Safe happening on June 20th is such a powerful way to, yeah, like empower each other to take responsibility for our communities and to contribute and to be at the table and to share ideas. And I actually love the webinars you guys have been doing. I went to the one this week. It was amazing because you guys started talking about how this prison abolition stuff and defunding will suddenly be, we'll start seeing it being co-opted by the larger institutions. And Sirius Marcus Ware was like, we have more imagination than they can ever co-opt from us. Mm-hmm. And like, that was such a powerful moment. So thank you for all the ways you've been educating, taking action, organizing. It's so powerful. So we have room for 2 to 3 questions from the audience.
Hi, my name's Clemmy. My pronouns are they, she. And my question is, what options or alternatives can we present to, because I feel like a lot of people have come like to me personally and asked like, oh, I have cops that are like friends of mine and they're good people. And this whole notion of like defunding them, like what are they gonna do? So I guess my question is like, what are the alternatives that we can present to communities and also to those so-called good cops that shouldn't be doing their jobs and should be doing something else? I guess that's kind of my question. Like, do we have anything in our collective imagination that works towards that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have all the answers for you, but I think that this is like a pervasive question, and one that comes up often as we're talking about these issues. I mean, as this call to action has gone out, like you, I've heard a lot of people reach out to me to be like, but my partner's a cop, or this person's a cop, and they're a really good person, and they support Black Lives Matter. And I think that I believe that those people are actually good people and well-meaning individuals. But that the conversation that we're having has nothing to do with them as individuals. It has everything to do with the institution of policing, and it's actually a testament to how corrupt and violent the institution is, that despite having all of these quote-unquote well-meaning people, the institution still manages to tear apart our communities and to dramatically harm Black and Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island. And so I think that one of the things that I've been saying to folks is that they should be comfortable to join the movement, and that means giving up some privilege, giving up some power, and thinking about how to reorganize their life in a way that they're not supporting a corrupt system. I think if we're in community talking about defunding your organization, you should participate in that by leaving, by being vocal about what's happening, because there's a lot of secrecy and a lot of corrupt things that folks are saying. There was an article that was going on. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but it is from a former police officer talking about supporting this call to defund police, but talking about how corrupt policing is, and how difficult it is. And so, yeah, I think people, if you have intentions, if you have skills that can do other things to serve community, do those things, because if you're honest about that, if that is your actual intention, it is not being served in the position that you are in right now, and we need you in other spaces. But until then, and as long as you continue to be subscribed to this harmful organization, we will continue to call for the abolition of you and your work. And this is going to be uncomfortable, but that's just what this work looks like.
Thank you. That was perfectly articulated.
We have time for one more question.
Laura Ann Harris, she, her pronouns. I was just curious to know, because I've worked with prisoners in the past, and I'm just curious to know, do the prisoners actually reach out to the organization, or how does that work? I'm just kind of curious about the inner workings of the relationships that you build with prisoners.
Yeah, so I mean, we benefit from having some folks on our steering committee right now that do active inreach already as a part of where they're working, and so they some folks go to prison, some folks run like information hotlines, so people could call them. Yeah, like my brother is in Central East, and so we often hear from folks in Central East directly, and that way we have great relationships with most of the folks here in Ontario. There's a lot of really interesting, innovative things that people have mobilized to be able to maintain these connections that have existed before we even existed as an organization. And so we're trying to do our best to keep in touch and to keep sort of on the pulse of all of these different groups. It's different between provincial institutions and federal institutions. Provincial institutions, you serve 2 years less a day, and so there's far more turnaround. In federal institutions, there's a lot more advocacy and organizing that happens on the part of incarcerated people. And so in a lot of those institutions, they have unions, they have things set up, or committees set up. And so we try to do our best to be able to communicate and take all of our direction from folks on the inside. We're starting to think about some ways to bring the voices that we're hearing to the community, and so we've started to do these like live stream broadcasts. We hear directly from folks on the inside, we record it, and then we play it out for people the next day, so that they can hear about the issues that are going on. We had some success at OCDC, which is the Ottawa Carleton Detention Center. They'd started a hunger strike in response to the like awful food conditions that the folks are receiving. They just changed the food in all the provincial institutions, and literally the next day, after we did our broadcast, they won most of their sort of big wins for their hunger strike. So that is an incredibly powerful tactic that we're hopefully going to continue, or we will continue. And then we have also just recently learned that there's a lot of cool opportunities to bring people directly into our conversations, into our organizing conversations. I won't talk specifically about that, but we're looking to organize with folks directly. And then most of the people, or a lot of the people in our organization, are former prisoners, and so they have relationships on the inside or have family members on the inside, and so we lean on a lot of different things. It requires a lot of creativity because of the nature of sort of censorship and secrecy and intimidation on the side of these institutions. Thanks for your question. That's a great point.
That was such an amazing answer. Rajan, thank you so much for all the work that you do, and the steering committee and everyone. And I love how open you guys are. And it's just like, well, just join the movement. Just come to the thing. We have weekly webinars. We have a forum on June 20th. You know, like there's so many options that it's like, yo, if you really want to get involved, you can. And it's really amazing that you guys are doing so much. So thank you, Rajan. That was the information session. We did it! Yay! So now we're going to move into the breakout rooms where we take action and we get to do something about it together.